There is a moment, quiet, unassuming, when everything changes. It doesn't arrive with trumpets, nor with fireworks. It begins with a breath. A breath so soft, it could be mistaken for the wind brushing through leaves. But it is not just breath. It is life returning. It is the soul remembering that it is not broken. It is the moment when suffering starts to release its grip, and the seed of awareness takes root in the soil of presence. The Buddha did not ask us to believe blindly. He asked us to look deeply, not outward but inward, into our own thoughts, our own pain, our own joy, our own impermanence. And in doing so, we begin to see that life is not what we assumed. That the mind, like a wild horse, needs gentleness, not force. That the heart, like a bruised fruit, needs space to soften. When you breathe deeply, you come home. You come home to your body, your sensations, your feelings, the temple you have carried since birth. And here, without the noise of the world, you can begin to listen, to hear what you've ignored, to feel what you've ignored, to feel what you've suppressed, to witness the river of thoughts without drowning in them. The Buddha said, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." But we forget this. We run from ourselves, seeking validation from shadows. We drink distractions, eat numbness, scroll past our own suffering, and in all of it, we forget the breath. But if you return to it just for a moment, you start again. Clarity does not arrive with noise, it waits in silence. And silence does not mean emptiness, it means fullness without judgment. When you stop clinging to the past and fearing the future, what is left is now, and in now you find your refuge. Thoughts come and go, emotions rise and fall, but the breath remains, anchoring you, reminding you that you are still here, that you are still breathing, that you are still capable of beginning. Even after heartbreak, even after failure, even after years of forgetting. This is not about achieving something. This is about remembering who you've always been. Beneath the layers of noise and doubt, there is no need to fix yourself, because you are not broken. There is only the need to see clearly, and clarity begins with stillness. So breathe, gently, deeply. Let each breath be a gesture of self-compassion. Let each breath be an act of courage. Let each breath be the beginning of a sacred return. You are not late, you are not behind, you are not lost. You are exactly where you need to be to wake up, and the path begins, not with a step, but with a breath. So breathe, and begin again. When you begin again, you do not erase what came before, you carry it differently. Like the lotus that grows from mud, your past does not stain you. It nourishes the bloom of awakening. Pain does not disqualify you from peace. It prepares the ground for understanding. The Buddha taught that suffering is not a punishment. It is a teacher, one that leads you not to despair, but to insight. Look closely at your suffering, not with judgment, but with curiosity. What does it ask of you? What does it reveal about your attachments, your fears, your unspoken longings? To sit with pain is not weakness. It is the greatest strength. It is the willingness to be honest in a world that prefers masks. And so you breathe, not to escape, but to stay. To stay with what is real. To stay with what is true. Every inhale is a reminder. This moment matters. Every exhale is a release. I do not need to carry what no longer serves me. In this gentle rhythm, you find your center, not the center the world has drawn for you, marked by success or comparison, but the sacred stillness that has always lived inside, the place where you are not defined by titles or numbers or likes or scars, but by presence. presence is the only real wealth. Because in presence, you see clearly. You see the craving that leads to restlessness, the aversion that leads to suffering, the delusion that leads to harm. You begin to see through the illusion of permanence, the illusion that things must stay the same for you to be okay. That the Buddha said, all conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. Impermanence is not a threat, it is a gift. It reminds us to hold things lightly, to love without clinging, to live without delay. So many of us wait to begin, wait for the pain to pass, for the schedule to clear, for the confidence to come. But the path does not wait, the breath does not wait, life does not wait. It is happening now and now and now. So why do we? The Buddha taught that the mind is everything. What you think, you become. And yet, so much of our thinking is inherited, unquestioned, reactive. We believe every story the mind tells. We bow to our fears, as if they were gods. But what if you could look at your thoughts like clouds drifting across the sky? Temporary, shifting. Not the sky itself, just weather. You are not your thoughts. You are the sky. Vast, open, untouched by storms. And when you remember this, even for a second, something softens. You stop fighting. You start witnessing. You stop grasping. You start noticing. You stop pretending. You start being. And in being, you remember what it is to be free. Not free from responsibility or effort or pain, but free from the illusion that you are alone, unworthy or broken. No, you are none of those things. You are awake, or beginning to be. And that is enough. That is more than enough. So stay, breathe, begin again. And as you stay, something within you begins to shift. Not with force, not with ambition, but with presence. Presence, not as performance, but as an act of returning. Returning to your breath, to your body, to the raw pulse of this very moment. The world may continue spinning in urgency, noise, distraction, but you are learning to abide in the still point. You are not running toward silence anymore. You are becoming it, not to disappear, but to finally hear the truth that is always whispered beneath the chaos. The Buddha said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." Yet how many of us have spent our lives doing the opposite, chasing approval, chasing pleasure, chasing the next escape? But the path of awakening is not paved with more. It is carved through letting go. Let go of the stories that no longer serve you. Let go of the identities that suffocate you. Let go of the blame, the guilt, the tight grip on how things should be. Let go not as abandonment, but as liberation. To unclench is not to give up. It is to make space for truth, for grace, for breath. Discipline in this path is not punishment. It is love made consistent. It is the willingness to show up to your life every day as if it was sacred. Because it is your morning tea, the sound of rain, the ache in your legs, the rising and falling of your chest. Nothing is ordinary when you are truly present. The miracle is not somewhere else. It is here, in the fact that you are breathing, in the fact that you are aware you are breathing. And this awareness, this clear seeing, is the birthplace of freedom. You don't need a perfect life to live with clarity. You need only the courage to witness your life as it is, to meet each thought, each feeling, each discomfort with the tenderness of a monk ringing a bell, not judging, just observing, and in observing, transforming. There is power in seeing, not power over others, but power over illusion. And the greatest illusion is that you are separate from life, from love, from peace. You are not. You are life. You are the unfolding, and the unfolding does not rush. So do not rush. Do not rush your healing. Do not rush your understanding. Do not rush your return. The Buddha did not teach a path of urgency. He taught a path of presence, of gradual awakening, of quiet revolution. And every time you breathe with awareness, you are participating in that revolution. So breathe, and know you are not starting over. You are continuing, and continuation is not failure. It is life in motion, gently circling back to truth. The truth is not hidden. It is not reserved for the wise, or the learned, or the serene. It is simple. It is direct. It is here. But to see it, you must slow down. You must become quiet enough to hear what has always been speaking. You do not need to shout into the universe to be heard. You only need to listen. The Buddha sat beneath the Bodhi tree, not to escape the world, but to understand it. And what he discovered was not supernatural. It was profoundly human. That suffering exists, that it has a cause, that it can end, and that there is a way. This is the noble path, not a path of beliefs, but of seeing clearly, not a path of worship, but of waking up, not a path you walk once, but one you return to again and again with each conscious breath. And the path begins with right view, to see the world not as you wish it to be, but as it is, to see that every craving, every aversion, every illusion is like mist on a mirror. It obscures nothing but your own reflection. You are not broken, you are simply covered in dust. And dust can be wiped away with awareness, with gentleness, with a single breath. Right intention follows, not a vow shouted to the sky, but a quiet commitment. I will not turn away. I will meet my life with honesty. I will stop wounding myself with expectation. I will live from compassion, not comparison. This intention is not rigid. It is living, a river that flows with kindness, not only for others but for the self who stumbles, who forgets, who grieves. Right speech then arises, not only in what we say, but in the silence we choose, in the way we listen, in the way we stop using words as weapons against ourselves, against others. Speech that does not divide, but heals. Words that do not inflate the ego, but express the truth. And in this way, step by step, breath by breath, the Eightfold Path unfolds, not as doctrine, but as a rhythm, a dance of presence, a song of mindfulness. You don't need to master it today. You don't need to know all the verses. You just need to be willing to begin, willing to return, willing to breathe. You are not here to perform enlightenment. You are here to live in truth. And truth is not a destination. It is a way of walking, a way of touching each moment with your full attention. This is how awakening happens, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet decisions of daily life. To pause before reacting, to feel instead of fleeing, to speak with care, to walk with reverence, to live with eyes wide open. So don't wait for peace to arrive someday. It is already here. It arrives when you do. And when you arrive, truly arrive, you begin to notice what you once overlooked. The warmth of sunlight on your skin, the sound of your own footsteps, the pause between heartbeats, the presence of life in the simplest of things. It's not that the world has changed, it's that you are no longer asleep within it. You begin to see that joy was never absent. It was only buried beneath layers of distraction. Gratitude begins to rise, not because life is suddenly easy, but because you are finally awake to its sacred ordinariness. This is the fruit of mindfulness, not a mystical trance, not a state beyond reach, but the simple, radical act of being here. of choosing in each moment to be conscious instead of automatic, to be open instead of armored, to be loving instead of fearful. The Buddha never promised a life without suffering, but he promised a way through it, a way to walk, even when the road is uncertain, a way to breathe, even when the air feels heavy, a way to carry pain without becoming it. And so you walk, one breath at a time, one moment at a time, and in walking, you begin to understand something profound, that the obstacles are not in your way. They are the way. Each challenge is an invitation. Each difficulty is a doorway. And when you stop resisting, you begin to see the lesson beneath the surface. Anger becomes a mirror, fear becomes a teacher. Loss becomes a sacred reminder to cherish what remains. Even your restlessness, the aching itch to be somewhere else, is pointing you back to now, because now is the only place you can truly live. And now is always beginning again. The breath is always here to welcome you back, not with judgment, but with openness, with space, with silence that does not punish but receives. This is the gift. You do not need to earn it. You do not need to deserve it. You only need to notice it, to turn toward it, to trust it. The world may tell you to hurry, to produce, to consume, to compete. But the Dharma whispers another truth, that your being is already enough, that your stillness is not a failure, it is a return. To breathe deeply is to remember that you are not here to chase life. You are here to embody it, and each breath is a step closer, a step inward, a step home. And as you return home to yourself, something soft yet powerful awakens. Not the kind of power that dominates or conquers, but the power that forgives, the power that listens, the power that holds suffering with such tenderness, it begins to dissolve. This is not weakness. This is the courage of awakening. To face your shadows without fear, to meet your sorrow without shame, to sit with the ache of your humanity and whisper, I am still here. I am still worthy. I am still breathing. This is what the Buddha meant when he spoke of liberation, not escape, but intimacy. Intimacy with reality as it is, with life, not as you imagined but as it reveals itself moment by moment. And when you live like this, with eyes unclenched and heart unarmored, you begin to see that even the smallest act can be sacred. Washing a bowl, tying your shoes, offering a smile, lighting a candle, each gesture, infused with awareness, becomes a prayer, not to a distant deity, but to the truth of this very life. You begin to serve not from duty but from presence. You begin to love, not from need but from fullness. You begin to let go, not from despair but from understanding. You realize that nothing lasts, and that is why everything matters. The child's laughter, the final leaf of autumn, the hand you hold just a moment longer before parting. The impermanence is not something to fear, it is something to bow to. It makes life precious. It makes now holy. And in this holy now you are free. Free from the prison of should have and what if. Free from the hunger for more. Free from the illusion that something outside you will complete you. You were never incomplete. You were only distant from yourself. And now you are returning to breath, to body, to the unshakable silence beneath every sound, to the vast open field within your own chest, where joy, grief, doubt and love all belong. The Buddha did not give us dogma. He gave us a mirror. He said, come and see for yourself. Not believe, see. Not follow blindly, but walk with awareness. And as you walk, you begin to feel a deeper kind of joy. Not the joy of escape or excitement, but the joy of alignment, of knowing that your life is not happening to you, but through you. That every breath is not just air, it is permission. Permission to rest, permission to rise, permission to begin again. And with that permission, you step gently into the world, not as someone trying to prove their worth, but as someone who knows it. You stop grasping for identity, and instead, you begin to embody truth. You become more honest in your speech, more careful with your attention, more generous with your presence. Because you realize now, the way you move through the world is your practice. It's not in the temples alone. It's in traffic, it's in disagreement, it's in the mundane routines of your day. The Buddha walked, not on clouds, but on dust, and his footsteps left behind a path that anyone could walk, not by copying him, but by waking up to their own direct experience. You start to notice where your suffering comes from, not because someone told you, but because you have tasted it yourself. You've seen how craving makes the mind restless, how clinging turns joy into anxiety, how resistance makes pain linger longer than it needs to. And you've also seen the miracle of release, that when you drop the story even for a breath, there is space, there is clarity, there is peace. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer fighting what is. You've come to understand the truth of interbeing, that nothing exists alone, that you are not a separate drop of water, but part of the ocean, and that every act of mindfulness sends ripples across the fabric of life. A kind word may heal someone's invisible wound. A moment of patience may stop the chain of harm from continuing. A breath taken in awareness may awaken something long asleep inside you. This is not small, this is not soft. This is the quiet revolution the Buddha spoke of. The revolution that does not need to overthrow anything but simply sees through it. The illusions of ego, the delusions of permanence, the myth of me and mine. And in that seeing you begin to live lighter. You laugh more freely. You forgive more easily. Not because the past is erased, but because you are no longer bound by it. You stop being so afraid of feeling, and in doing so, you finally feel alive. Not just on the good days, but even in sorrow, even in loneliness, even in the ache of impermanence, because now you know it is all part of the path. Every loss has something to teach you. Every joy is already a letting go. And every breath is another invitation to return, to bow, to begin again. There is a tenderness that arises when you stop running, a sacred quiet that begins to unfold, not in the absence of thought, but in the presence of understanding. You realize that your thoughts are not enemies, they are echoes, they are reflection, they are old stories still asking to be heard. Not because they hold truth, but because they hold memory. And the Buddha taught us to be compassionate even to our memories. So you begin to listen, not with agreement, not with resistance, but with awareness. This is the turning point in your journey, not when the world outside changes, but when your inner gaze softens. When you stop trying to fix the moment, and instead you become still enough to witness it. That witnessing, that pure, unclenched presence is where transformation begins. Not the kind of transformation that makes headlines or wins praise, but the quiet kind. The kind that changes how you breathe, how you walk, how you touch a leaf, or sip tea, or respond to someone who once made you flinch. The kind of change that doesn't seek recognition, because it is rooted in liberation, not performance. And liberation, as the Buddha revealed, is not given. It is uncovered. It is revealed layer by layer as delusion falls away and the truth of your own being shines through. It was never far, just hidden beneath doing, beneath proving, beneath the frantic search to become someone. You forgot you already were, so now you sit and you feel what you used to outrun. The ache of the past, the confusion of the present, the fear of the future. You sit, not to master your emotions, but to make peace with their movement. You realize emotions are not flaws, they are teachers. Anger says, something matters to me. Sadness says, something has changed. Fear says, something is uncertain. Joy says, something is alive, and all of them are impermanent. This is the heart of the Dharma. Not to erase human experience, but to hold it lightly. To touch it without becoming tangled in it. To honor it without being possessed by it. This is not denial. This is intimacy. To know suffering, the Buddha said, is the first noble truth. But to know it clearly, without running or reacting, is already a form of freedom. Because in seeing suffering, we stop blaming. We stop numbing. We stop pretending. And we begin to understand the subtle architecture of our own pain. How clinging feeds the fire. How resistance keeps it burning. How illusion fans the smoke. And with each breath of awareness, the fire softens. The smoke clears. The ashes settle. You start to see not with the eyes of judgment, but with the eyes of wisdom. And wisdom does not speak in thunder. It whispers in your bones. It says, you are not separate. You are not lacking. You are not late. It says, this too is the path, this grief, this doubt, this longing. And in that whisper, you stop fighting the current. You begin to float, not away, but deeper in. You begin to see that what you feared most was not your feelings, but your resistance to them. And as resistance falls away, you find space, not the emptiness of absence, but the spaciousness of presence. The kind of presence that can hold contradiction, that can hold sorrow and joy in the same breath, that can hold I'm not okay and I am still whole at the same time. This is the middle way, not indulgence, not suppression, but the radical act of being with what is. And when you live this way, life ceases to be a problem to solve. It becomes a mystery to live. You don't need to figure it all out. You just need to meet it moment by moment with awareness. This is the essence of right mindfulness. To be here for your own life, not just the moments you like, but all of it. The silence, the noise, the beauty, the mess. To be here for the cup of water. To be here for the trembling hands. To be here for the laughter that rises for no reason at all, because this presence is not ordinary. It is sacred. It is the soil from which every insight grows. The Buddha did not teach us to rise above life. He taught us to descend into it with open eyes and an open heart. To wake up not by fleeing the world, but by embracing it with compassion, with wisdom, with unwavering gentleness. And each breath is an invitation to do just that. To come home again and again, not to the house of your ego, but to the temple of your being. And in that temple, nothing is missing. You are not a project. You are a presence. You are not a mistake. You are a moment of aliveness that cannot be repeated. So breathe. Feel that. Let the breath wash away the armor. Let the breath open the hidden doors. Let the breath remind you, you are already whole. And if the mind wanders, let it wander. The practice is not to control it, but to return. Kindly, patiently, without drama. Return to the breath. Return to the now. Return to yourself. This is the path. Simple, yet not easy. Quiet, yet infinitely powerful. And each time you walk it, even for one breath, you are awakening. Not someday, now. And what does it mean to awaken? It does not mean that the sky opens and all your questions are answered in flashes of light. It does not mean that pain vanishes or that your mind stops whispering doubts. It means that you no longer believe everything the mind says. You no longer confuse the passing storm with the open sky. To awaken is to walk with eyes that see clearly and a heart that does not shut down. It is to realize that the conditions around you do not define your freedom. Your relationship to those conditions does. The world will still change. People will still leave. Your body will still age, the seasons will still turn, but the suffering that clings to impermanence, the endless hunger for what is not here, begins to fade. Because now you are home in the here, and the here is enough. Awakening is not arrival, it is ongoing intimacy with life. It is the quiet trust that even in confusion there is clarity. Even in sorrow there is space. Even in fear there is breath. And breath is the doorway. Breath is the friend that has walked with you from the first moment of life and will not leave until the last. It never demands attention. It never punishes when ignored. But the moment you return to it, it welcomes you whole, intact, forgiven. And in this returning over and over again, you begin to see there is no such thing as failure on this path. Only forgetting and remembering, only wandering and coming home. You will forget again. That is not weakness. That is human. But you can remember again. That is the power. Each time you remember to breathe, to pause, to witness, instead of react, you are planting seeds. Seeds of peace. Seeds of resilience. Seeds. They may not bloom overnight, but the ground of your being begins to soften. You no longer need to be perfect. You only need to be present. The Buddha's path is not for the special, the elite, the pure. It is for all. For the angry, for the grieving, for the overwhelmed, for the hopeful, for the tired. It is not a path of escape. It is a path of embrace. You begin to see that nothing needs to be rejected, only understood. Even your shadows, especially your shadows, for it is in the darkness that you find your own light, the light of compassion. Compassion, not as pity, not as charity, but as the deep recognition. You are not different from anyone else. Everyone suffers. Everyone longs to be loved. Everyone is searching for peace, even if they search in misguided ways. And so you soften, not because life is gentle, but because you no longer want to add to the pain. This is the heart of the Bodhisattva, the awakened one who vows to return again and again, not for self-liberation alone, but for the liberation of all. You do not need to wear robes to walk this path. You do not need to renounce your life. You simply need to live with your eyes open and your heart available, to meet each moment as it is, not with grasping, not with rejection, but with curiosity. What is this moment asking of me? Perhaps it asks you to listen. Perhaps it asks you to speak. Perhaps it asks you to forgive. Perhaps it simply asks you to stay. And staying, truly staying, is an act of revolution in a world that constantly pulls us away, pulls us into scrolling, into achieving, into defending, into escaping. But you are reclaiming your life, breath by breath, choice by choice. You are learning that peace is not passive. It is active. It is fierce. It is the discipline to keep returning to what is real, to what is here, to what is now. You are beginning to see how rare that is. How rare it is to meet someone who truly listens, who looks into your eyes without trying to fix you, who holds space for your becoming. And as you offer that presence to others, you deepen it within yourself. Compassion is not just kindness, it is understanding, and understanding heals more than any advice ever could. You stop needing to be right. You start needing to be real. And the real you, the one beneath roles, labels, stories, that being is not lacking. That being is luminous. That being is Buddha nature itself. Yes, you, even with your doubts, even with your pain, even with your messy, beautiful, vulnerable human heart, you are not a mistake in need of correction. You are a mystery in need of witnessing. And in witnessing yourself, with love, you become capable of holding others in the same way. This is not a philosophy, it is a way of living. It changes how you speak. It changes how you listen. It changes how you rest your hand on your chest when you're scared and whisper, "I'm here," because that is what you've been longing for all along. Not certainty, not control, but presence. You've wanted someone to stay, to not leave when it gets hard. And now you are becoming that someone for yourself. You are learning the art of not abandoning, not when grief comes, not when anger flares, not when shame whispers, not when you fall. You remain with breath, with patience, with gentleness, because the Buddha did not awaken by defeating the mind. He awakened by understanding it. He did not suppress the world. He embraced it with clarity. And now, so do you. You begin to see the sacred in the ordinary. You begin to hear silence as a kind of song. You begin to find God, not in temples, not in heavens, but in moments. Moments like this one, right now, where nothing needs to be added, where nothing needs to be removed, where everything is simply allowed. This is freedom, not the freedom of escape, but the freedom of intimacy, the freedom of presence, the freedom of knowing. You are life, breathing itself. So breathe, and let the breath teach you everything. There comes a moment, quiet and unnoticed by the world, when you stop looking for answers outside yourself. You stop begging the world to love you. You stop chasing after tomorrow to make today bearable. Instead, you close your eyes and you listen. And what do you hear? Not words, not doctrine, but something older, something deeper. A pulse, a silence, a space that says, "You are already whole." It's not the voice of ego, it's not the voice of fear. It's the voice that has been waiting beneath the noise all along, like a flute beneath the roar of wind. And when you hear it, not with your ears, but with your being, you understand what the Buddha meant when he said, "Look within. You are the light." This is not metaphor, it is not poetry, it is the direct experience of your own nature. A nature that is not stained by mistakes, a nature that is not defined by trauma, a nature that is not diminished by the scars you carry. You may have been hurt, you may have been broken, you may have been lost, but none of that changes the truth beneath it all. You are awareness itself, and awareness cannot be damaged. Like the sky, it remains spacious, vast, ungraspable, but always present. You begin to see that everything you've clung to, your image, your status, your story, was just weather. And now, you are ready to let it rain, to let it part, to let the truth emerge like a mountain, steady and unmoved beneath all of it. Because awakening is not about becoming more, it is about becoming less. Less attached, less reactive, less afraid. And in that less, you find more peace, more clarity, more love. Not love that clings or needs or bargains, but love that simply is, like sunlight. It does not demand anything to shine. It does not judge where it falls. It only shines. And you, when you live from this place, become that light, not by effort, not by force, but by remembering that you were never separate, that your breath is the same breath that moves through all things, that your pain is not just your own, but shared by all beings. And so you hold it, not as a burden, but as a thread in the great weaving of existence. And in holding it, you stop being afraid of it. You stop running. You stop hiding behind distraction or ambition or numbness. You let yourself feel. And in that feeling you find a strength the world does not understand, because it is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is quiet. It is the strength to remain open, to cry without shame, to laugh without armor, to say yes to this moment, even when it's messy, even when it's uncertain. This is true courage, to show up to your life as it is, without turning away. And the more you do, the more you begin to see the miracle in the mundane. How washing dishes can be meditation. How holding a friend's hand can be prayer. How watching your child sleep can be enlightenment itself. Not because these things are rare, but because your presence makes them holy. This is the transformation, not of circumstance, but of consciousness. And consciousness, once awakened, can never fully return to sleep. Yes, you may forget. Yes, you may fall. But something has changed. A fire has been lit. A thread has been tied. A vow has been made in the deepest part of your being. I will not abandon myself again. And so you return, not because you must, but because you love yourself enough to come back. Back to the cushion, back to the breath, back to the beauty of your own becoming. You begin to see that the real path is not up or out. It is down and in, into your fear, into your grief, into your joy, and through all of it, into peace. A peace that is not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of wisdom. The wisdom that says, this too belongs. This heartbreak, this uncertainty, this quiet awe, they all belong. They are all part of the dance. And you, dear one, you are not the audience. You are the dancer. You are the music. You are the silence between the notes. So move. Move through your life with grace, with patience, with reverence. You will stumble. That's okay. The Buddha did not teach perfection. He taught awakening. And awakening is messy. It is non-linear. It does not follow your plans. It breaks you open. It takes everything you thought you needed and reveals what you already have. And what you have is enough, not just to survive, but to love, to give, to be free, truly free. Not someday, not after you've fixed everything, not after you've become someone better, but now, in this breath, in this body, in this moment. So come back, again and again, until you no longer need to come back, because you have never truly left. And when you truly realize, not as a thought, not as a philosophy, but as a knowing so quiet it trembles through your bones, you will weep. Not from sadness, but from the simple, breathtaking recognition that you have always been enough, that you have always been home, that everything you were seeking all along was never lost, only unseen, and that all it took to see it was a breath, not a perfect life, not a grand revelation, just a breath. The Buddha taught, as a flower does not pick and choose the bees that come to it, so too must we open to all moments. Open, even when it hurts, even when you don't understand, even when the world feels too heavy and you want to close your eyes again. You open, not because it's easy, but because it's true, because truth is not a sentence, it is a way of being. You begin to live your life not from protection, but from presence. You stop waiting for everything to be figured out before you begin. You begin now, with trembling hands, with tender courage, with imperfect breath. You begin again, and slowly. You realize this is the path, not a straight line, not a destination, but a spiral. Each time you return, you are not back at the start, you are deeper. You have seen more. You have held more. You have softened more. And softening is not weakness. It is the strength to remain human in a world that tries to make you hard. You begin to bow, not in submission, but in reverence, to life, to impermanence, to this wild, aching miracle of being alive. You bow to the fact that you will lose everything you love, and you love anyway. You bow to the fact that nothing is guaranteed, and you show up anyway. You bow to your own wounds, and from those wounds compassion grows. Not the kind of compassion that pities, but the kind that sees, that sits with another's pain and does not flinch, because you have sat with your own pain, and you know, it is survivable. It is transformable. It is sacred. And so you carry yourself with more gentleness. You speak slower. You listen deeper. You love wider. Not because you are trying to be good, but because you are awake. Awake to the truth that there is no them, only us. And every time you choose love over fear, presence over escape, silence over noise, you shift the world, even if no one sees, even if no one claps, even if no one knows, you know, and that knowing is enough. Because you are not here to be spectacular, you are here to be real, to walk this earth with bare feet and open eyes, to breathe, to bow, to begin again, and again, and again, until the line between breath and prayer disappears, until every step is a sacred offering, until every moment becomes a chance to remember who you are, not the roles, not the past, not the fear, but the awareness that watches it all, the stillness beneath the wave, the silence beneath the name, the light that has no opposite. This is who you are. This is what you return to. This is what no one can take from you. And so, you live, not faster, not louder, but truer. You rise in the morning not to conquer the world, but to meet it. You sit in silence, not to escape, but to become intimate with what is. You breathe, not because you have to, but because each breath is a gift you've stopped overlooking. And as you live this way, the world does not change overnight, but your relationship to it does. You are no longer fighting reality. You are dancing with it. You are no longer hiding from the dark. You are carrying the lamp. And when others meet you, they feel it. They feel the quiet steadiness, the rooted softness, the presence that does not judge, but simply is. And that presence changes things, not with noise, but with peace, with the unshakable peace of a heart that knows, just breathe deeply, you are beginning again.